Hello, everyone, and welcome to Twillow Talk. I'm Tanis Coughlin from the Twillow Lifestyle Community, Twillow Lifestyle Academy, and I am joined by my beautiful co-host, Jennifer Jurkofsky. Hey, Jen.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Jurkofsky, and you can find me at Twillow or at myholisticself.com. It's so nice to be here.
It's exciting. So, what are we looking at for transits? Because I know we were joking. Our apologies or thank you for your patience because we are a few minutes behind. I put out a meme not long ago about, my ducks are not in a row. 3 of them are missing and one of them's a pigeon. That would be how I feel today. So.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny because I was saying, some days I have it all together. Today's not one of those days.
So thank you for joining us on this not together day, and we're going to just be the authentic selves that we are and go through. So as for the solar storm stuff, we've had a bit of a better week this week where solar storms are concerned. Things have been a little bit more easy. I think even the energies overall this past week have been a little bit lighter. Easier to manage. We have had a full moon, so it's been more like typical full moon kind of energy this week, as opposed to all that extra stuff. And so that's a good thing. Gives us a little bit of a reprieve from where we're at with all of this ascension stuff. What's going on in our transits this week, Jen?
Yeah, this week we moved into the gate 35. So it's the gate of change, the gate of progress, depending on how you want to really look at it. And it's interesting, right? Because we get caught up kind of in this idea of, wanting things to be a certain way, but this is really about understanding the natural rhythms and how they show up and being able to really tap into that, right? So we have this, sometimes we have this need to restrain ourselves or this need to push for something, right? Either end of that kind of spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
But this is really about finding that flow. And in being able to find that flow, right? It's we talk about this all the time with the emotion stuff, right? Riding the waves, the highs and the lows, and being able to allow space for those changes to happen, and also for those periods that may seem uncertain, right? In the in between, because whenever there's change, there's shift, right? And so in those times of shift, we talk about finding the pause or that void or that moment of transition where it's not one or the other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And being able to kind of step into that and feel into what that means for us, because in that we're able to get a deeper understanding of kind of the next steps, right? If it's the gate of change, the gate of progress, it's like, okay, how do I find that pause moment so that I can really step into what shift I want, to move towards and how I want to navigate what's coming and how do I want to even communicate that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And share, how I'm moving through. It's so interesting. Like, a lot lately has come up about vulnerability, right? And what that means and what that looks like. And, sometimes I think we try to avoid the natural rhythms because we don't want to feel vulnerable. We don't
Yeah.
want to have those moments that come in and go, ooh, like I'm feeling a little rough right now, right? And, being able to kind of acknowledge that there is a need or there's something there. That we need to kind of deal with or work through or explore, right, as we move forward. And so it's really about kind of taking that pause and feeling into what that really looks like for us and how we want to navigate that and what feels correct for us when we navigate that.
Well, and we were just talking about that before the show, about how do we go with the flow and stuff. I know that's, we were talking about it being in my human design, to be able to go with the flow, have enough structure, but be able to go with the flow and that sort of thing. And, that's really hard for some people to go with the flow. I am more practiced at it now than I was when I was younger, that's for sure. Um, but it does require you to be comfortable being authentic and vulnerable, because when you don't, because we think that if we have control over a situation, that we don't have to be vulnerable in that situation, right? We've got control over it. As soon as we feel like we don't have control, we feel that vulnerability, like it's like a free fall, you know, and you're like, ah. So yeah, it's about getting comfortable in that pause, and that's an interesting thing to navigate with now.
It really is. And it's interesting too, because in the gene keys, the shadow aspect is hunger. Right. And it's that need for things to be a certain way, that need for things to move in a certain direction, that kind of like, I have to have it. I have to have it this way. I have to, right. And it's interesting because when we work through that and recognize that, that the whole point of this gene key isn't even really about the material world itself. It's really about our spiritual journey and what that looks like. Then we can actually move into the gift, which is adventure, right?
Right.
And being open to what comes, and being open to going with the flow, and being open to be able to ride those waves. And, and the siddhi with that is boundlessness, right?
Yeah.
We get to that place where we're not limited by all of the things that we think we are and that we hunger for, because we think that there's lack, or we think that we can't, or we're fighting against that vulnerability, or whatever it is. Right. And so it's really,
well, and society has us society wants everybody to fit in a schedule, schedules and me. It's an interesting balancing act. Yeah. So I just want to say a big hello to Lynn. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the beautiful light. Mama Lynn actually runs an organization called Torch, and it's all about bringing light to the world, and she does a wonderful job of that. I'm a sort of a member of that in the I can't remember what the title is exactly, but I am a member of her Torch organization. And it's a lot of fun. It's a worldwide organization, and
that's beautiful.
Brings light to the world. So yeah. I know she's got different pillars that you focus on, right? Ecology and community, and a couple of others that are similar to that. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I know there's a couple of others of you here, so please say hello and let us know you're watching, and let us know how you're doing today, and we'll go from there. So we've been talking about sort of being vulnerable today. Do we want to pick a card, or do we want to go with vulnerability?
Well, let's pick a card. If that's what we're supposed to do, it'll match right up.
Usually has something to do with it, that's for sure. Let's see what the cards have to say. Oh yes, so for those of you that it's your first time, we pick cards from The Soul's Journey, the lesson cards by James Van Praagh, mostly because it has great topics of discussion, and it allows us to just have an open conversation, including you guys. So please join in the conversation. And apparently we have some guides as well. I just got some goosebumps going on there. So we'll see what everybody has to say. What do we have coming up for us today, guys? They don't want to come out. Interesting. Now we have too many. Okay, that's too many. No, just one. We need just one, guys. Just one. Not 12. It's only an hour show.
All the stuff today, Tanis. All the stuff.
All the stuff today. We have a lot to talk about. Okay. We got service. I feel good when I can help others.
Well, I love that.
Service. Beautiful. It's not really. And look at that mandala. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that.
It's beautiful.
It's not really like.
It's a little blurry.
It is a bit blurry. I'm trying to get it to sort of focus in, but it really doesn't want to.
Yeah, you can't like tap it to do its focus thing. Tap, tap. No, it's not working.
It's not working. Anyway, service is our topic. So how are you of service?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Can you read the mantra for it again, or the affirmation?
I feel good when I can help others.
I love that.
Empath's dream. Yeah. Right? I mean, we always feel good because everybody, when we get other people to feel good, then we feel good because we're empaths, right? It's like, okay, I don't have to take on their stuff. They're happy stuff. We're good.
Yeah.
We can focus on service.
Well, and it's such a neat thing too, right? Because I mean, so many different traditions and all teach about service, and they teach about how, if you're caught up in your own stuff, be of service.
Yeah.
Right? Because it'll help to navigate that, and it'll help to, allow space to work through your own stuff through helping someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's such a beautiful thing to think about how, service is not just that kind of giving of ourselves, but it's in service to ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a card that I have, and I'm not sure which deck it's in now, or I try and grab it, but if you get nervous, focus on service, it says. So that's a great way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what does service mean, though? Because service is different for everybody, right? What does it mean to be of service?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that also might look different for each person.
Right.
Right? Depending on what we feel led to do, depending on maybe even issues that we have around it and what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So it could definitely be different for each person. So being able to really kind of feel into what feels correct for you is going to be a really important piece when it comes to service.
Well, and I think also, being open to or making sure that we ask if we can be of service.
Yeah.
I've had times where people have like jumped in and their heart's in the right place. They're just trying to be of service, but there's this resistance or a perception that you're stepping on people's toes if you like rush in and try to do it. And that's kind of like that difference between support, not save.
Yeah.
Right? If you're supporting someone, you're asking them, how can I support you? Saving is like, oh, I've got to do this. It's going to save you. It's going to help, but that might not help depending on what their needs are or where they're at. So that's really the sort of the crux of it, right?
It's so interesting too when you talk about it and with that too, right? Because again, that empath piece, right? Your first kind of response there about like, oh, that's like the empath dream. Right. And it's true. But sometimes being of service is simply holding space for somebody to not be okay. Right. Yeah. And so there is, that whole kind of other side of what service can be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when we look at, what is needed in this situation, actually asking the question, right, can sometimes be really eye-opening. Because when we think, and I've talked about this with clients before too, right? This idea that we see something happening and we go, okay, that's not okay. Like that needs to be fixed. Yeah. It needs to be changed. It needs to be better. It needs to be this. It needs to be that. Right. And we have to take that step back and go, okay, but is what's happening impacting me?
Right. Is it any of my business?
Is it any of my business? Is it really my role to jump in and to try to fix it? Right. And we can very easily get into the mindset of, well, I'm just being of service. Okay, but it's only service if the person wants it.
That's right.
Right? Otherwise, it's not actually service.
Yeah. And we think of service as doing, but sometimes service can be being, like you were saying, right? Holding space, just being can be of service to people without even realizing it. So, we're not always, not everyone is capable of doing everything in order to be of service, but sometimes just being is of service. I have a lot of people that are like, for my clients, they come in and they're like, they're light workers, and they're like, I just feel like I'm supposed to be doing more. And I'm like, but they're already stressed out with their everyday lives, right? And I'm like, okay, first of all, you're here. You're taking care of yourself. That is the first most important thing, because one high vibration person can raise the vibration of 25,000 other people because of the butterfly effect. So when you raise your vibration, you are being of service to all. And that's where that just being comes in, right? Just like when we hold space, we're being of service, we're just being.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do it. And then that comes across in the service as well. Or if you're feeling like you need to be of service and you feel obligated,
Mm-hmm.
then that comes across in the service as well. And then it's not as well received, right?
Yeah.
Because the energy behind it is not the same.
Yeah.
So
it's so true. And even thinking about it in light of, the transits right now, and thinking about like the gift and the siddhi, a part of it, this, being able to really open to bounteousness, right? And it's the whole idea behind the work is that inner transformation, right? And so how are we truly of service to the world? It's working, on ourselves and understanding, and then holding that space.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. Big hello to Thomas
Hey,
of
Thomas.
Tarot Your Way. Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Thomas. Good to see you. We're talking today about service.
Mm-hmm.
And how are we of service? There's a hello for Jennifer. Hello.
So I wave. Hey, Thomas. Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Yes.
There's so many different ways of
Mhm.
being of service, and of, again, like we talked about, like that holding space piece, right? Just being can be service,
Mhm.
right? Just kind of,
Being the light,
yeah,
or being somebody's
smiling.
light, right? Or doing, smiling at somebody on the street. That's always the example I give to people when we talk about the butterfly effect, right? You smile at someone on the street who's on his way to work. He's a manager. He then makes the day wonderful for his team. All those teammates go home and they've had a great day. Their families have a good night because they come home in a good mood. Then those families go out to all their activities. Those family members go out to their activities, and that's another whole group of people that have the effect, and it spreads that way, right? And then they go home and spread to their family. So it's a huge spread when you do that, right? And it can happen from one smile or one compliment. Even
One
that could be
kind
seen
word,
as,
one kind look,
yeah,
one kind anything.
exactly. Kindness. It brings that is being of service, being kind to others,
Mm-hmm.
right? So don't think that it's hard work to
Yeah.
be of service. It can be as simple as a smile, or it's a lovely day to somebody who nobody's spoken to.
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you been of service? We have a few of you on here. How have you been of service this week? That's my question.
Mm-hmm.
And what does service mean to you?
Mm-hmm. And maybe how do you experience service?
Yeah, receiving is sometimes more difficult, isn't it, than actually giving service. I was talking to somebody else about that yesterday, I guess, and how it's much more difficult to receive
Mm-hmm.
than it is to give.
Yeah. I
Especially
remember.
those of us in the service industry, because we're so used to giving,
Mm-hmm.
that to actually sit back and receive is like, can I please? And then you feel uncomfortable because you're like, oh, I'm putting out an ask. Should I put an ask? I don't know if I should put an ask. It's that whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where community is important. I know like Jen and I, we do healing work on each other back and forth, sort of whenever we need it. And that's it's a beautiful thing. And so when you have community that you can do that with, it's really, you're just of service to each other in whatever way that is natural or you're called to be, you know. And that's a beautiful part about community. So, you know, all of you are part of our community, so we're super happy to have you here. So how were you of service this week? Let's start with that. What did you do that you felt like you were of service to somebody this week?
Yeah, it's, it's interesting too when we talk about of service, and I'm thinking even about with the kids and getting the kids to help, right? Because
Mm,
you know,
yep.
oftentimes it's well, if I help, what am I going to get? It's like, well,
Mhm.
I remember my youngest was like, why do I have to clean the bathroom? I'm like, well, do you use it? Yeah.
Well.
Right? And I think sometimes, when we think about, you know, what it is to just show up for somebody else, or what it is to just, say, "Hey, like, would it help if I did this?" Or,
Mhm.
"I'm heading to the store. Can I pick you up something?" Like, it can be such a simple little thing that could make a world of difference for somebody.
Mhm. Yeah, and I often try to start that with, "How can I help you?" Or, "How can I be of service to you? How can I support you?" That's the other one,
Mhm,
support. How can I support you right now? Especially if someone's feeling really emotional.
mhm.
They may not actually be able to answer it in the moment, but then it opens the door for them to think about receiving when they might not have been in that mindset before.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
mhm.
and being okay with the uncertainty too, right? On both ends,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's it, it's a normal human thing to want to then jump in and try to figure out things to do or
Yeah.
figure out ways to help.
Need to
And
feel helpful. I need to feel helpful. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, and it's not always helpful.
Yeah.
Right?
I think we've all done that at one point or another, and we realize afterwards, "Oh,
Hmm.
I maybe didn't want that, or I
Yeah,
could have done something differently."
yeah. So, being on the receiving end, um, sometimes can help us be really mindful when we step into the helping side of it too, right? Where we say, someone says, "Oh, can I help?" And you say, "Yeah, could you do this?" And then they go do that. And you're like, okay, but I needed this
Yeah.
done, right? And so, really being open to, if you're going to offer support, being really mindful of what's needed,
Mhm.
right? And if somebody doesn't give anything clear, it's okay. But if somebody does give a clear, yeah, I really need help with this, can you then be okay with helping in that way?
Yeah. And if you can't, because for whatever reason it's not something you're able to do, saying, "I'm really sorry, I can't help with that. Is there anything else?"
Yeah.
Or seeing if you can find somebody else that might help with that, right? So
Mhm.
that you facilitate that. So it's not about, just saying, "Nope, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna do this instead." That's not really being of service. But if you can facilitate it,
Mhm.
because realistically, there's always gonna be some times that we're asked for something that we're not able to do for whatever reason, whether
Yeah,
it's schedule, whether
and it's
it's
okay.
abilities, and exactly. Or
Mhm.
we just don't feel it. Like, sometimes you get we talk about that gut feeling, right? Like,
Mhm.
you have that in your chart, and it's that gut feeling of, "Nope, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Nope. No, I'm
Yeah,
getting a
and if
no on that."
yeah, and if you're getting a clear "Mm-mm," it's important to honor that.
Mhm.
Um, right? And so being really honest about what you can and can't do is important too when it comes to service, right? Because how many times have we, and I mean we as like a me for sure, and we've talked about this before too, but where you say, yeah, yeah, okay, And then it's like, well, whoa, not okay. Like, what am I can't take this on, or this isn't
Mhm.
right. And in the moment, it's like, oh yeah, I just want to help. I just want to be of service. I just want to step in there. And then it's like, oh, I actually can't commit to that. And that's not something that's within my power right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And knowing that it's okay to change your mind,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not seen that way necessarily in society, but really it's what's best for you. You have to be able to, because really we're not doing anybody service if we're going into it with a negative mindset
Mm,
or feeling that obligation like we were talking about earlier, right? That's just bringing
yeah.
negativity, and that's really counterproductive to supporting or being of service.
Yeah. It's so nuanced,
It
because
is.
there are times too where, something might be like, okay, yeah, I really could do that. I don't really want to do that. But I could. Like, it's within my capacity. I have the ability to. It, won't harm me to do it.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes those times can really be magical too, because they open
Mm.
an opportunity for us that, we wouldn't have had access to otherwise. But if you're feeling like, no, like this is outside of my capacity, I can't do it. It's not good for me for whatever reason, then it is important to honor that.
Mhm. Yeah. And sometimes we say yes to something now, and then something changes 2 days down the road, and all of a sudden, your
Mhm,
because your whole situation can change overnight, right? Depending on what's going on, and like in a moment, really. And
mhm,
so, and that happens for everybody. So we just need to show tolerance for each other and compassion when we do have to change the plan. I know there's a lot of people out there that like they need their plan, and we have to
mhm.
stick to the plan because that's what makes them feel safe. So when we say no, we have to change the plan, that can be upsetting for people that need that security of schedule and a plan.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, people like me, where I don't necessarily know if I can do something until it's that moment, right? And then my spleen's gonna be like, "Yeah, no." Right? So if I say, "Yeah, yeah, I can do something," way down the road, I don't actually know if in that moment when it shows up, if I'm gonna feel okay with it or not,
Mhm.
right? So I have to be really, really mindful of the things that I say okay to that are further down the road,
Mhm. Well,
right?
I mean, that's kind of the way. So Jen and I, discuss stuff on Monday afternoons. We'll often meet and do course curriculum and stuff, and um, we often will be like, "Okay, so are we still okay for 1:30? Are we still okay for 2 o'clock?" Like, because both of us are like, sort of like that, right? We're like,
Mhm.
something's come up, I got to change it, and I mean, one thing I love about it is that we're both very flexible. So we kind of like, oh yeah, okay, well, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Whatever, we'll do it next week. Or, it's not something that it's never very life or death stuff. It's always like,
Yeah.
we can manage this. It's okay.
Mhm.
But I noticed that we're both like that. We're kind of like, yeah, okay, let's check.
Mhm. Check
Yeah,
in. What do I need right now? Where are we at? What's going on?
yeah.
If we
But
need to push it by a little bit, we push it.
and we're respectful of each other, of each other having our own needs and stuff,
Mhm.
and needing to follow up on those. So I think that's an awesome thing.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
again, when we talk about like what we were talking about before, this idea of vulnerability and things like that, that can only come to be if we're both really honest about where we're at,
Yeah. And that
right?
is kind of how we've put it. There's days when I've been like, you know what? I feel like crap. I really need a nap. Can we
Mm.
like wait an hour? I really just need to lie down. And I mean, you've done the same sort of thing. You've had to
Yeah,
put it
there's
off for
something going
whatever
on and I need to deal
reason.
with
And
it and,
yeah, yeah.
and yeah, right? But it's, it takes an ability to trust in one another and to be willing to be open about what is actually happening so
Yeah.
that also when that happens and things get changed or plans get changed, it's not a personal thing, right? How
Right.
often do we take things really, really personally and it's like, oh, Like that person isn't showing up for me, or they're not doing this, or they're not doing that, right? Because we're not willing to be vulnerable and say, this is why this is happening, right?
Yeah.
And this is,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, there we go. What if you don't trust yourself? How do you learn to trust others? So this is from Shauna.
hey, Shauna. Yeah, it's a tough one, and you really need to learn to trust yourself, right? And so, some of the things that I would want to ask is like, what's coming up for you that you don't trust yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? What are the experiences that you're having that you're second guessing yourself? And this is where I'd be curious about your design, right?
Mm-hmm. Your human design. Yeah.
Because you know, we are taught from the moment we come in and through school and everything else that this is what makes our decisions for us.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, this should never be our decision-making tool, right?
Yeah.
Whatever our authority is, and it's different for each of us, but whatever that is for us, that's really where we need to be making our decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're looking at abuse or something like that, I am sure that there is a part of you that is telling you what you need to do. And then there's a part of you that's analyzing everything. And the analyzer is not the one who's going to make the correct decisions.
No.
Right. And so when we talk about how do I trust myself, it's what is it within me that I need to feel into to truly know what's correct for me. And right. And again, depending on your design, that's going to look different. I'm a splenic authority. In the moment, I know if something's right for me or not, and if I need to move, if I'm allowed to move forward, or if I need to get the hell out.
So
Right?
she says she guesses her authority is always her gut and heart, but
Mhm.
has always been told that it's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you've got outside sources always telling you that you're not supposed to trust yourself,
That's
right?
going to do that.
That's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, the more we check in with ourselves and the more we allow space to practice listening to it, the more we begin to see, oh, wait a minute, that did tell me
Mm-hmm.
that was correct for me,
Yeah.
right? And then we can even begin to look back and notice little nuanced things and go, oh, that's what that was. Yep, I didn't listen to that. I second guessed it. Somebody told me no and I let it go, but it was correct,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we begin to hold space for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's another one.
Also accused of running away, but really the situation doesn't jive with my gut, but my head doesn't understand, so I need to get away. You know what,
Right.
though? If your gut says no, your gut says no,
Yeah. We have
right?
brain cells in our stomach too, right? Those often get the stimuli first
Mhm.
before your head. So it's stomach, heart, and then head, really, in the order, right? In terms of when our body or how our body receives the messages.
Yeah,
And so listening to your gut is usually the first indicator.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So, trying to see if I have an image I can show. I don't even know where my other book is.
She has a lot of books there, so it might take her a second.
And I have all over the place. So this is the human design thing here. Okay. And there's different authorities based on the way that this design shows up for us. Right. And so the splenic authority is um, it's the survival one. It's the most intuitive. It's very much in the moment. Is this safe for me? Is this not safe for me? So if you have that one as your authority, then, in that moment, if you get that not safe, it doesn't matter what the brain is telling you, you get out. You say,
Yeah.
no, thank you. Thank you anyway. I'm out of here. Right? If you have the sacral authority, again, it's that gut, right? Do I want to do this? Mm-hmm. Do I want to do this? Right? And you're going to have that, oh yeah, oh no, right? And it's going to
Yeah.
come through you. Like you can't even help it. It just comes right out. And you know in that moment. But the mind again will try to talk its way through and say, oh yeah, but don't you know that? No. Mind, no. My sacral has spoken. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Right?
Yeah.
And then you've got the solar plexus. The solar plexus is the emotional one, right? And this is like a good majority of people, actually, I think it's like 50 something percent of the population have the solar plexus. And this is an emotional authority, which means that there is no in the now knowing. You
Right.
can't make big decisions in the moment, right? You have to feel the highs and the lows. You have to ride that wave until you get to a place of clarity. And until you have that, you don't know for sure if something is correct for you. So if somebody's pressuring you to make a decision or they're pressuring you to answer right away, you don't know. And you
Mhm.
can't give them an answer. And if they won't take, let me get back to you as an answer, they're not correct for you,
Yeah.
right? And so it's really important to kind of recognize that. And there's a whole bunch more too, right? We've got our will center as our authority, our G center. We've got the mental, which is like, I have to talk it out before I can, really understand it. And then there's people that have to wait a whole lunar cycle before they know if something's
Mhm.
right for them or not,
Yeah.
right? And depending on what your authority is, it also means that you have open centers in other areas. So, me being splenic, I don't have my sacral or my emotional defined. So, in that, I don't have my will either. So, like, I don't have those things to push me in certain directions, but I'm also more susceptible to what other people feel in those moments.
Mhm.
So, if I'm feeling really, really emotional about something, it is not going to be easy for me to hear what my spleen has to say
Yeah.
because I'm picking up on other people's stuff, right? And so, when it comes to like how do we make decisions and how do we move forward with something, we really have to know how we operate so that we know the best way to tap into that, right?
Yeah.
And no other person is going to tell you what you need to know for your own truth. So if your gut's telling you something and somebody else is saying, no, that's wrong, they're not you. They don't know what's going on inside of you. They don't
Mhm.
know your experience. They don't know what triggers are coming up inside of you, right? And so if they can't honor and give you space for what you need to do to process through whatever's coming up, they're probably not correct for you.
Mhm. Well, and I'm the emotional authority, so I have to like let things simmer a little bit. But also because we're empaths, we have this feeling everybody else's stuff, which does tend to cloud it somewhat, right? For both of us, like you were saying, when you're really emotional, your your splenic is harder to listen to, right?
Yeah,
While I'm
because
riding the waves, that's hard for me to make a decision. And back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
hmm Yeah,
So
so whether you have solar plexus, I mean, solar plexus is like if we were going to do like a hierarchy of authorities, if you have it defined, it doesn't matter what you are, that is your authority. It just is. It takes precedent.
yeah,
And if you have it defined, you have to ride your emotional wave.
yeah.
You just have to. If you don't have it defined, you have to ride the emotional wave you pick up from everybody else. Either way, we are all riding this wave.
Yeah. So let's learn how to surf.
It's learning
That's
how
the
to surf,
thing.
right? And it's
Yeah.
learning, what is mine and what is not mine.
Mhm.
And what do I need to surf and what do I need to just maybe step back and watch from the shore, right? And what do I need to hunker down with? And what do I need to just allow to be? There's so many things that go along with that, right? And so, when we talk about navigating abuse, when we talk about navigating other people, so many of us who are empaths, who do pick up on what other people are feeling, who do allow for that connection and are more open and understanding to other people's experiences. I mean, there's a lot of studies out there about being magnets for narcissism and all of that as well, because of our desire to be of service and to help, and right. And so there, I just looping it back. Right. And so I think that it's really important, as it doesn't matter who we are, if we're complete extroverts, introverts, whatever, to be able to have that time alone to really feel into what is right for us. Because all of us have conditioned spots, right? And open areas and things that, I mean, I've yet to meet somebody who has their entire chart complete. Maybe there's people out there. I have not seen one yet where there isn't at least, an open center in there.
Shauna says, thank you so much. And I'm honestly tired of being told I'm crazy, going through narcissistic abuse recovery, having trouble recovering. We'll reach out. That's what, I mean, Jen's a psychologist.
Psychotherapist, yeah.
Psychotherapist. And, and so she is an expert in dealing with that sort of thing. So she's, you can reach out to Jen for that. And, there's the energy piece, getting the cords cut. Making sure that you're releasing that, doing the forgiveness part for yourself as well, not just for the abusive or the narcissist in that situation, but also for yourself, because there's a lot of like self-blame that goes along with that.
Ho'oponopono.
So Ho'oponopono work. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, like, I have quite a few clients, and we talk about this idea of, being told they're crazy, or being told that they're never going to get better, or being told that they're this or they're that or they're whatever. They're highly sensitive. They are empathic. They've been through abuse, right? And so when they begin to recognize what they're feeling is not even necessarily all their own stuff, then a lot of these labels and a lot of this stuff that they've been told doesn't apply anymore.
Yeah, especially if they're not in the relationship anymore. Because really, I mean, narcissists are actually really, really insecure, right? They're abuse survivors usually, and they're very insecure. And that's why they, in order to feel safe, they have to be in control and all of this stuff. Am I on track with that? That's just my intuitive feeling. I don't have the training that Jen has, but
well, like many things, it is a spectrum.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But, when we talk about recovering from narcissistic abuse, one of the questions that I would have for you is, what are your narratives about yourself? Right? And how many of those are ones that you've picked up from your abuser? Right? And how many of those are actually your narratives? Right? And that's the first distinction, right? And then we want to look at, okay, of the ones that are yours, how many of them are conditioned? Right? How many of them still serve you, and how many don't serve you anymore?
And then how do we release them?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But, we've talked about this on the show so many times, and I talk about it with clients all the time, right? The very first step to any kind of healing is awareness.
Yeah.
Right? Can I observe what is going on for me in this moment? Right? And so this part of you that says, I'm having trouble recovering, what is going on for you in this moment? What is coming up for you? What do you feel the blocks are? Can you just observe them? No judgment. Can you just observe it? Right? In this moment, what is the trigger? What is the feeling? right? And this is how we can be of service to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Can we step back and start to release the judgments that we have, right? Recognize, oh, I'm saying this is good and this is bad. Okay. All right.
What
I'm going
makes
to
it
let it,
good and what makes it bad?
yeah. Or I'm going to just let it be and see what happens,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? Because in that moment, we can release that label, right? And now we're able to see more of the picture of what's coming up.
Yeah, because the labels those are, our limiting beliefs in many ways, right? Having a label, putting a label with it.
Well, and
So,
this is why we say the brain doesn't make the decisions, right? It is programmed out the wazoo, and it doesn't care if what it decides is based in reality or not. It just wants to go back through its programming, and it goes, oh, this reminds me of this, 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 and this. Okay, boom. Even though it's got nothing to do with this, 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 and this,
Mhm.
right? But it filters it through, and then it gives us a new, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden that new, I'm saying blah, 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 but
Blah,
it's
blah,
weird,
blah.
right? That
The
new
new blah, blah.
narrative is then made to reinforce all of the old narratives, none of which might actually serve us.
Yeah. So when we look at service, it's also about serving us, not just others, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can we be of service to ourselves and service to others?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And being willing to allow ourselves to be vulnerable with ourselves, even.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, we struggle enough with each other, but we struggle with ourselves too.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely. So what do you say when you're pressed to explain decisions you made based on your intuition? Often I listen to my gut is not good enough for others.
Yeah.
So even, even those that are high up in business, high up success, what we might see as successful people, all of them make gut decisions. All of most of those people that are like in successful positions, they've had to make gut decisions. And it doesn't mean they're always right? Yeah. But if we go with our gut decision, we can be comfortable with the decision no matter what the outcome.
Yeah.
So if they are saying it's not good enough for others, then that's their problem, not yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know that's really easy for us to say, and it's really hard in the moment when you have somebody pressuring you to explain something or to give them whatever. But truly, this is all I can tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I trusted my gut. That's it. That's all.
And we are human, right? We are perfectly imperfect. I have to say that is probably one of the biggest switches for me, because I was perfectionist before, very like everything had to be when I was able to let myself off the hook and be like, okay, it's okay to be imperfect, it's okay to make mistakes, what a weight that lifted. Not that I go out to try to make mistakes, but learning
My 3 does. Sorry.
You go out to make mistakes?
No, but nothing's a mistake.
Right. If we do it, if we listen to ourselves, right? Our bodies.
Yeah. And we can learn from everything that happens.
Exactly. Yeah. So, go out there and be perfectly imperfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here's another one from Ming.
So with the gut responses,
that's a good one.
They are always that very initial response. And remember, we're talking about, in this sense, I'm talking about like splenic kind of responses, sacral kind of responses. Those very much in the moment, yes or no, in the moment, safe or danger, very kind of immediate feelings. Everything else that follows that is the mind.
Programming.
Okay. So when we're talking about the fear, the limiting beliefs, the random thoughts, that's all the mind. right? Should I walk down this street? Yes or no? That initial, go this way, nope, go that way. That, and then the mind goes, oh, well, actually that way's shorter. If we just went that way, it'd be, 5 minutes faster. And why can't you just do that? It's okay. Well, the gut just told you no. The mind is logicking through and everything else, right? And it can work the other way too. The gut says, yeah. And the mind goes, oh, you're not a risk taker. You don't really want to do that. If you try that, you might get hurt. I don't know if you really want to do that because it's kind of scary for me. Right? But
That's
gut
the fear
says
and
no,
limiting beliefs coming in, right?
right? So the moment that there's a narrative that goes with it, you're not in that gut feeling anymore.
Yeah.
Right? You're not in that initial response.
Yeah. And then what's your opinion, Jen, on the gut feeling versus intuition?
I think they're pretty much the same because you're tapping into that intuitive part of you, that connected part of you,
Yeah.
right? And so, intuitively, again, like I said with the sacral, right? There's this idea of it like comes through you. Like you don't even necessarily know it's like, oh yeah, I feel it in my gut. No, it's like this that just it has to come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because on the splenic side, they talk about it as this, it speaks once and quietly,
Right. And
right?
that speaks to what Shauna says here. I guess the trick is hearing the gut because sometimes it's so rapid fire. How do we slow it down?
So the mind is rapid fire, right? That initial gut response, though, if we can look at something, again, like we talked about really early on, finding the pause.
Yeah.
So much with the transit right now, right? If we can find the pause and not have that hunger for an answer, that desire to have things a certain way, that need to push or pull, whatever it
Control.
is,
Yeah.
right? Then in that moment, in that pause, we're going to be able to feel it.
Yeah.
Right? But as long as we're trying to figure it out, this is too loud. And if this is too loud, we're not going to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And so this is where different practices really are important. Right? We talk about meditation, we talk about mindfulness practices, we talk about being able to become the observer of the thoughts, right? And there is a lot to be said for being able to clear them and to be
Mm-hmm.
able to have those moments where it's like, brain, just wait a minute.
Chill, man. I got to feel.
Yeah.
Right? We've got to feel.
Yeah. But in that, the more we practice, right? And it's all practice. This is all a journey.
Course.
If we made it, we wouldn't be here anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? So, it's practice. And you can do it with simple things, right? Again, knowing what your authority is can be really, really helpful because
Mm-hmm.
then you can even practice it with food. You can practice it with, different events through your day. There's so many different things that you can do to experiment with it and see what feels correct and see what feels not so correct.
Well, and the muscle testing is also a good way, right? Because that's related to feeling into it with your body and how do we react to that muscle with the muscle testing. So that's something else to look at. If you guys are wondering what your authority is, Jen is very good at doing human design, and I'm sure she would love to help you out. So please reach out to her, okay, at Holistic Self Counseling or Twillow Lifestyle. And I'm sure she would love to set you up with a human design profile and all of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you just want to go find out what it is, you can do that. There's, Jovian Archives, which is actually Ra Uruhu was the founder, well, the person who channeled in from The Voice, human design. And, you can go ahead and get your chart and then you'll know what you are. So that when we talk about all of this stuff, you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm splenic too.
Yeah.
Right? But if you want to really learn about it, reach out.
Yeah.
Right? I think too, we're going to be doing a class, a whole series actually, and part of it's going to be some of the human design stuff to really kind of get the basics of, you know, decision making and stuff like that.
Hello, Gerald. Nice to see you. So Gerald's here from Tarot Stash. He says muscle testing is great. And I believe we have Gerald coming up soon on the show. He is joining us next week, if I'm not mistaken. So come and join us and come back, and it's going to be lots of fun. We always have a good time when Gerald's on the show with us. We always have a good time, but we always have a good time with Gerald too. So glad you could make it with us, Gerald, and join us today. And we're looking forward to having you on the show. So we've come to the end of our hour, pretty much.
Golly, it flies.
It really does. It really does. I have another event to do tonight too, so I need to sort of head out rather than going over it all. Oh, there's a question.
What if muscle testing is different answer than gut? Which one trumps the other? If you're doing muscle testing correctly, which isn't always the case because the mind does get in the way, if you're doing muscle testing correctly, then chances are the muscle testing is correct and what you think is gut might not be gut.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But you know, we can force things with muscle testing as much as we're not supposed to be able to. We definitely can. And so we can overpower and things like that. And so I think also when we're really activated, our ability to sense things or read into things is going to be different, right? When we talk about you know, if we're in a fight or flight state, right? Anything like that. And so having tools and things to bring us back into ventral vagal, social engagement, all of that kind of stuff so that we can feel more clearly is really important. And I know we're out of time, but you can reach out or you can even look back at some of our other videos. I don't know which, you know what, the one that we did into the new year for empaths is one I remember specifically that I showed some of the different exercises and walked through them.
That
So go
reset is a great one.
Yeah. So go back through the Twillow talks. Go back to December, January. And there was one about like empaths in the new year and kind of navigating whatever. That one I know for sure. I know I've done it in other ones, but that's the one that stands out for me. So go ahead, take a look back. We went through a whole bunch of different tools to help calm the nervous system, to help, you know, bring us back into those places where we can hear the gut again. So yeah, go ahead, take a look at those.
I think you might have done it with the empath series that we did.
Yeah.
Too, which was with the other teachers as well.
Oh, yeah, I think we did it in that one as well.
So I think you might have done it in there too, which might be easier to find.
I know we've done a bunch. And the empath series and that one that I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure there's more than one tool.
Yeah.
Right? We talked about a whole bunch of them. So they're worth kind of taking a revisit too, because then you'll be able to see a lot of the different tools and practice them and see which one works for you.
Because they're not all going to work for everybody.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. And yes, Gerald, I just checked the schedule. It is next week. I hope you're still free, and we're looking forward to having you. And Ming says, thank you so much. Lots of love. So lots of love to you all. As we bring this week's to a close, we want to thank you all for joining us and having a discussion with us about service. So we have lots going on with Twillow Lifestyle Community. Check out the new stuff. We've got a galactic class coming up with Michelle Marie and myself. We have chair yoga starting, which is with with Jacqueline Richard. She was on the show last week. And what else have we got going on? Oh, channeling class. I'm going to be doing a 9-week channeling class. I'm excited for that. That's always fun to do. We are working on a retreat for this summer. And we're still sort of shaping that a little bit. So we'll give you more details as they come out. And we're also doing the 9-week class, Know Thyself, this summer as well. So there's lots coming up, and I know I'm forgetting something, but check out the website, twillowlifestyle.ca, under events and workshops. All of that is under there. And we want to thank you all for joining us again today on this awesome Twillow Talk, and for all of your wonderful comments. We're sending you all so much love, and we're hoping that you have an awesome week ahead. Did you want to add anything, Jen? Tell people where you can be reached.
You can find me at Twillow. You can find me at myholisticself.com. If you go to myholisticself.com, there's a drop down for human design, and you can actually fill in your information. If a lot of you do it, you just have to give me time, because I make the things up myself. So it's not an automated thing that just sends out. And we'll get you hooked up with your chart, so you can know what we're talking about when we talk about all these different things.
Absolutely. Hi, Lisa. I got your message. I'm going to call you tomorrow. Okay. So it's been a really busy week, so I'll give you a shout tomorrow. Thanks for joining us today. And we're wishing you all tons of love. Tanis Coughlin from the Twillow Lifestyle Community, Twillow Lifestyle Academy. You can reach me at twillowlifestyle.ca. We'll see you next week. Have an awesome one.